This video is about building project finance models with AI. So in the previous video, we talked about the review of a project finance model using AI. In this video, we are going to mainly talk about the building of a financial model using AI with a case study of a hydropower plant. So this is the background story. We have a hydropower project with a financial and economic analysis that is already done, but it's in text format. We don't have the financial model for it. So we are going to use AI, and I did it. I'm just going to show you the steps on how I build a model for this project using AI. So this document, I just want to take you through what are the information that are available in this document and how AI replicated basically or extracted rather the assumptions and calculation from this document and build a financial model for it. So the document contains information, this one that we are going through right now, that I'm going to feed into the AI model as well. Explains the methodology for the financial and economic analysis. It also provides some information that we need to build the model, like the generation, the total project cost and the revenues and some, information that we need can be extracted from this document for building the model. Then it also shows the results of their economic and financial analysis. We are focusing on the financial analysis now. We don't want to do the economic analysis. So for the financial analysis, they are also indicating the metrics that they were interested to see, like the weighted average cost of capital and some project IRRs as well, or they call it financial IRR as well, that they calculated. And in what is good about it is, like in the annex, they also put their exactly all the cash flow statement, the capital cost, O&M, taxes, revenue, and how the final financial IRR and NPVs were derived. So that's a very good case study, and it's quite a simple task to do. As you can see, there are not many complications here in terms of the financial analysis. So we are going to ask AI to do the financial model for this case study. Just to be also to give you all the information, I also provided another document as well to AI, Claude, which is the feasibility study done for this project, which is quite a comprehensive document which explains all the key technical, contractual, and everything, most of the aspects that are important for the project and are important for the building of the financial model are basically can be extracted from this document. So let me show you from the start. So I did that, as I told you, in Claude AI. I just gave these two documents, and with a simple prompt, I said, just build me a financial model, cash flow, waterfall, P&L, and balance sheet for this project. So the prompt is quite simple, but it comes with two skills. So calling two skills for building the model. What are these two skills? Which I found them to be quite useful to give the output that I want in the format that I want. So I called the first skill that I'm calling here in this conversation the generic model builder. So this is basically the guideline for everything related to the model mechanic and structure. So first of all, this is a generic one because if the model has additional complexities, which I am listing them here somewhere in this within this skill. If there are some additional complexities, then you might want to call another specific skill that can handle that additional mechanical work that needs to be done on the model. So these things are important when it comes to building the model, so that you're clear about it right from the start when building the model. One of them for me is like currencies. If you have multiple currencies within a financial model, then that's something that you need to plan ahead, both in terms of the inputs and the way you do the calculation. So that's something that requires some maybe additional skills to be called in that sense. Timeline is another one, which is quite important to exactly know how you want the timeline for the model to be put in place. So a couple of other, meant things that I want to basically call before I do the execution of producing the model. Uh, in terms of here I'm also providing guidance in terms of the model structure, the number of worksheets, and how I want the inputs, calculations, and outputs to be separated from each other in different worksheets. So just here, asking AI to insert some typical sheets, a guide sheet containing some of the information about how to work with the model, a log sheet, a Q&A sheet. So, and then in terms of the input sheets, I prefer to have this style of building the model, which is separating your constant input from the time-based inputs. So that's something that I'm providing, the guideline here to AI to follow while building this financial model for me, separating input S in another sheet, calling it input S. I want one sheet for calculations. Especially this one is a quite simple case, right? So we can do everything within one calculation sheet. And I'm also providing some additional information about how I want the calculation blocks to look like. I mean, that can be just there. I don't know if they are useful or not, but I put those typical calculation blocks there. But I think the most important one is to maybe mention the cash flow waterfall block in your skill, so that that's one of the most important statements in your project finance. So you want it to be included in the output of the AI. Regarding macros, one thing that I want AI to do is to identify where are the circular references that that are included in the version of the model, and then separate them and provide also, if there are any VBA codes that are required to resolve it, maybe we can try to see if it can provide that as well. But that's quite challenging. But anyways, you can put all those guidance to AI to do these kind of different things for you, checks, to put the checks, do the calculations. So providing a quite, detailed explanation of how I want things to be done in the model. And then I ask for an annual sheet to be added as well as a separate sheet summarizing the basically the 3 financial statements. And then I also here provide some information about the color codes, about the formatting, about the way I want the calculations to be done, not to, of course, hard code anything within formulas, and all those sorts of guidance. I include them here. Then is a second one as well that which I call the skeleton, calculation skeleton. The calculation sheet is the most important sheet while you're building the model. So you have to make sure that this model, these sheets, whether it's one sheet or multiple sheets, you want to make sure that this worksheet has a certain structure certain places where things needs to be placed within the worksheet. So you want to be very careful in providing those also indication about exactly how you want the calculations to be done, how the formulas to be written. Do not, write very long formulas. There are maybe certain functions that you don't like and you don't want the AI to use. For example, HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, these kind of things, you can all mention them in the skill. And so that's what I did. And let's now go and see the first version of the output of AI for this case study. There were some issues on that day, so I had to wait a little bit, and then finally at some point at 4:19 p.m. The process started. So it followed the following steps. Is just to read the steps that AI followed to build the model. First was to set up the workbook shell. So that's building the skeleton of the financial model, the input C, input S, calculation sheets, and dashboard. Then populate the input S and input C from the feasibility study. So that's the work that was done. Then building the calculation timing engine. So following the skill that I had, it went and it built the timeline. Then started with the calculation, the economic blocks, it calls it, but it's basically escalation, production, revenue, OPEX, CAPEX, and SNU. Then it did the calculation for the debt block and taxes and cash waterfall, and finally building the financial statements and the dashboard. So this is the first version of the model. It has the cover sheet, the typical cover sheet. It has a change sheet, which is the log sheet. It's named it change. It has a dashboard, which is a disaster, which I had to deal with in the next steps. It has a input C sheet, input C sheet, which is quite good. It went and it put also the exactly, that's what I instructed to go and put from the project documents where you get all the information from. So that one is included as per instruction in the source column within this sheet. And it also used exactly as I instructed the index function to go and select among a selection of scenarios. Input S is also there. It has the typical CAPEX payment curve, which is time-based in this one. That's the part which might be a little bit difficult for AI to understand which of the assumptions should be reflected on time-based and which one should be reflected based on constants, like this style. That's because some things that you consider in future, maybe that you want to include them in the time-based. And for example, the principal repayments also maybe something that you want it to be also included in your timing assumption sheet, because at some point in time the repayment will be hard-coded. So some consideration like that maybe will need to be done manually, that AI might not be able to detect right away. Now, when it came to calculation sheet, it has, the timeline exactly as I wanted. And it has the timeline. Then it's the formatting of these columns is a bit off. We cannot see this, so that's something that I ask AI to correct in the next iteration. So it has this one single calculation sheet which has the different calculation blocks in it, which is exactly what I asked for, which is fine. But then what I need to do, of course, always when you have any spreadsheet produced by AI, is you need to do the review. You need to go cell by cell and understand each of the formulas that goes into these calculation blocks, and do all sorts of tests and make sure that the formulas are applied consistently across all the rows in the model, because that one is something that I have seen a lot, that the first maybe formula is doing one thing, and somewhere down the road the formula switches completely to another formula without really any kind of indication. So that's something that you need to look for when you are working on a financial model produced by AI. So anyways, like for example, things that I discovered in this one, there were some inconsistencies in some of the rows, I don't remember. But one thing that was very clear was in the calculation of metrics, which you see this type of errors happens a lot. For example, you see that for the minimum DSCR, it's just coming and selecting some rows from 2021 till the end of the project. So that's not flexible, that's not transparent. If we change the input in the model, the dates a little bit, then this is still referring to these columns when it needs to be moved, shifted back or forward. So these type of things that were not done properly, although the skill was emphasizing on those things. So as I said, the work of building a model with AI and making sure that maybe the problem is with the skill, maybe the problem is with the prompt. So you need to go and, change the skill, work, on the skill, make sure that you put additional things so that next time when you test, you can see whether that same problem appears or it has been resolved. So what I did is I went and I asked for this kind of formatting issues. At this point, I said, let me give it another try and see if I can improve my skill for the formatting stuff. So I gave some additional indication of what I want, and I asked AI if it can, Claude, if it can also update the two skills as well simultaneously, which told me that for the skill, I have to go to another, conversation and do the modification in another conversation within the skill section of AI, which I went and I did. It's just a little bit of back and forth. So with that additional work on the skill, and I had another version 2, which didn't have the formatting issues really with the calculation sheet. So that was a simple basically correction or iteration that I did just on the formatting. So now you see that the calculation sheet now looks better in terms of the formatting of the titles for each calculation blocks. I still don't like, the color codes for the inputs that are coming from the input sheet, but that's something that I can do with the generic macro. So I'm not going to bother that much and going back and forth to make sure that the skill can do that for me next time. What else here? So now I said, let me tackle the summary sheet, because even here I still didn't ask for the dashboard, or what it calls a dashboard, that is basically a summary sheet. So I want to make sure that I get a proper summary sheet in there. So I realized that I cannot do that without maybe going and defining another skill for that summary sheet. So I went and I created another skill for building a summary sheet, and I gave an exact example in Excel format of what is the structure of a summary sheet that I prefer. So based on that, I ask for, you see, that's the skill, which is just saying, I want in the key inputs and outputs in a certain format, and I want also some charts and some graphics as well, and exactly the way I want a summary sheet to look like. So this is what is given here. And the next iteration came as version 3, which had that summary sheet very close to what I want, sitting in that new version of the financial model, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So here it comes. That's the one. It has the key inputs it has the key outputs, and it has also a summary financial statements on annual basis. So I said, just let me push it a little bit more and ask it to also create those charts that I want to see in any summary sheet. And the main one is cash flow available for senior debt service versus debt service, and maybe the DSCRs as well within the same chart. So that's the most important thing that I want to have as charts in the model. So I go and I ask just specifically for these charts to be populated, and I get the final version. That's how far I went with this exercise, is to get to this version, okay, which has the typical things for me. It has the summary sheet. It created now the different charts for me. I can still go and improve the charts, the look of the charts, but that's good for now. It has, the input sheets, which I can go and modify and define a different scenario for this project and do any sort of things that I want. So as I said, this is a very simple one, right? And it did quite a good job in building this simple structure, but it required some additional work, as I told you, to checking, reviewing, and rebuilding with AI to get to this version. When things become more complicated, when you have a more complex structure where you have multiple tranches of debt, where you need debt sizing, debt sculpting, when you have tariff setting mechanism, then things might be more complicated. So I have tried to do that the best way that I can say I managed to build this complexity was to do it in a modular way and within, Excel. So having Claude next to you is an advantage, that you can use it as an assistant, so you can add modules to it as you are monitoring the building of the model. So this is just an additional assistant that you can use to help you while you are building the model, and especially for things that are quite repetitive, like for example, if you have already built a tranche of debts, senior debt in your financial model, you can ask AI to replicate that for you, and it can do that. And then you can go, and of course you need to, so instead of rebuilding it yourself, you can ask AI and then cross-check the work of AI. Sometimes cross-checking takes the same time as doing it yourself, so be careful about what you ask AI to do and what you can do yourself as a financial modeler. So that has been my experience so far with using AI for building models. I have tried with a number of, other cases as well. So happy to discuss further if you are interested in this topic. But as I said in my previous video, for the next one, I want to switch back to debt sizing and debt sculpting in project finance deals. All right, thank you and bye.